Chuck, would you like to come up to the front, please? I think this is the man that you're looking for.
At the time the incident occurred. He was not on duty the night that the incident occurred. A guy by the name of Nigel Kerr was. Nigel has admitted he saw something and saw it go into the forest. Now here's what Baker says. You read it. The radar tapes were removed from Nita's Head, that they called it Nita's Head, Offspring Bridge, and the logs pertaining to the event. I was in the briefing room at Nita's Head when high-ranking officers and men in suits told both Ops Squadron staff it did not happen, not to talk about it. But the MOD continued to deny evidence, citing that the cameras were switched off at the time, which is rubbish. There were two radars and they both had cameras. If the cameras were switched off, why the need to remove the tapes and the bridge logs and brief the squadrons not to talk about it? So Security 6 comes up, which is Jim Peniston. He was the flight line security supervisor. And his boss, Master Sergeant J.D. Engels, they come up along with several others. They all look into the forest. There's something out there. It looks metallic, and it's got multicolored lights, and it looks like it's on the ground. So it's decided to investigate. So Peniston, Burroughs, and poor Airman Kapanasak had only been on the base 2 days, and he didn't know which end was up. Got drafted as a horse holder, so to speak. And the three of them loaded in a 6-passenger pickup truck and drove out the Eastgate Road to the Forest Service Road, turned right, went about 100, 150 yards, turned left down a very ruddy, muddy, difficult forest track, down into the forest and took a little left on the trail to get as close as they could with the object. Now they were having problems with the radios, which is quite interesting because we had 5-watt Motorola radios. They were pretty much line of sight, but that's all flat out there. They shouldn't have had any issue whatsoever, but the radios kept cracking and breaking up on them. So the flight commander for the police. Very mature individual. He wasn't a typical lieutenant. He spent 4 years in the Marine Corps, got out of the Marines, went to college, came in the Air Force with a commission. He was a real straight guy, no nonsense, believe me. He came in white as a sheet. He said, I've got to talk to you and the base commander right now. I said, what's the matter, Bruce? He said, now. So we went into the coat room. It was the only private place in the little building. And he said, it's back. He said, what's back? He said, the UFO is back. The base commander and I both looked at each other, thinking nonsense. He said, no, I'm serious. I said, what did you see? He said, multicolored lights out in the forest. There's something out there. We're investigating it right now. Oh, my goodness. So the base commander had to give a speech and make some awards and presentations and whatnot. So guess what? He turned to me and says, go investigate this and put this to bed. We've had enough of this stuff. Gosh, I flipped his name right now, but anyhow, she said, give him a call and tell him to meet me at his office. So I go home and change clothes. Bruce England, the lieutenant, master sergeant, come by, pick me up. We go down to the disaster preparedness office. And I told him to have, Monroe Nevels was his name, have Sergeant Nevels bring his camera. Nevels had a degree in photography, had a very good Nikon camera. He and I both had f2 cameras, which were state-of-the-art at that time. And he even had a darkroom. And I said, have him bring his camera. When we got to the disaster preparedness office, I said, bring a Geiger counter along so we can show there's no radiation out there and put this thing to bed. So he picked up a Geiger counter. We went back, got in the Jeep. We went down to the motor pool because they were running low on gas. And there were 2 or 3 cops down there with motor generators. We called them NF2 light alls. They're basically cast on, about 12, 14 inches, about 2 inches deep, equidistance apart. And we're measuring them, trying to figure out, wow, this is interesting. And the Geiger counter's brought up. And Neville says, listen to this. We're getting significant readings in each of these indentations, and the area in the center of the triangle formed by the 3 indentations is much higher. I said, whoa. I said, it's not dangerous, is it? He said, no, it's not dangerous, but it's significant. I said, try something. Go over to those trees. Now, the forest there was tall Corsica pines. And their canopy's high. In other words, you can walk underneath to see through because the green's all up high. And so they put the Geiger counter on the side of the tree toward the 3 indentations. It reads pretty high. You go to the other side, it doesn't read as high. I said, oh, that's really interesting. We noticed some of the trees have rub marks on them. And one member of the party, and I don't remember who, says, look up there. There's a break in the tree canopy above us, and you can see the sky. That's the only place around like that. And there's broken branches on the ground, like something came up or down there. And while we're milling around trying to figure this all out, Bruce England suddenly says, look out there. There's a glowing red object. There's an object about the size of a large basketball. It's not quite round, it's a little bit oval, has a dark center, and it's sitting out in the field between us and the farmer's house. Now the farmer's house, when we first got there, was dark. They'd gone to bed. And there are rows of windows on both the first and second floor. There's a hedgerow now, you can't see them now, but back in those days there were no hedges. And you could see the light reflecting off the windows in the farmer's house, so bright that it looked like the house was on fire. Enough so that I was concerned for whoever was in the farmhouse. We watched it for a couple of minutes, and suddenly it comes into the forest. Now we're about 75 yards back in the forest. It comes into the forest, it moves through the trees horizontally, bobbing up and down a bit, missing trees. In other words, it's going around obstacles. Obviously under intelligent control. I said, well, nobody's going to believe this. Why did I ever get involved? Well, we watched it for a few minutes. I said, let's try and get close to it. So we try and approach it, and it goes back out into the field. So we stop at the edge of the forest. There's an old barbed wire fence there. We watch it for maybe a minute or two, and suddenly it explodes silently into 5 white objects, just like fireworks, and disappears. While we were watching, what appeared to be either sparks or molten metal or something appeared to be dripping or falling off it. So I said to everybody, let's go out in the field, let's take a good look. Maybe we can find some evidence, something burnt or some bits and pieces or particles or something. So we take our torches and we go out in the field and we're searching all around. And the only thing we find out there is cow pies. In other words, the cattle have been out there. What I failed to mention earlier is when the object first appeared, the glowing object, the farm animals, the cows and everything went crazy. And when the object exploded, they all got quiet. So we're out in the field searching around, and somebody in the party says, look up there, there's 3 objects in the sky with multicolored lights on them. They're all moving in a pattern together. They're elliptical. And we watch for a couple of minutes, and they turn into full circles. In other words, they were at an angle somehow. Wow, this is unbelievable. And I'm thinking, gosh, I wish I'd never come out here. Well, I'm stuck, I guess. We watch for a few minutes, and we decide to see, we see 2 bright white lights to the south, out over the coast. Now, the whole time we could see the lighthouse. And I have to tell you about the lighthouse. I've been to the lighthouse, I'm familiar with the lighthouse. It's a Orford Nest. They have 2 good pubs out there. I used to go out there and have dinner from time to time. It's a good place to go for a drink and a dinner. The lighthouse has 3 lenses. I talked personally to the lighthouse keeper. Red, green, and white. The white lens shines the land. The red and green lights are navigational lights, and if you're a sailor, you know what that means. They shine out to sea. He said, if you saw a red light, you couldn't have seen the lighthouse unless you're out at sea. He's sound asleep. Even his dogs don't bark, which surprised me. We step in a small stream, and everybody gets wet up to their knees. We go out into the plowed field, and we're looking at these 2 objects to the south. We can't discern a shape. They're just bright white lights, so bright you can't tell a shape. Suddenly one of the objects at very high speed comes directly overhead, probably 1,000, 2,000 feet up. We're watching it, it sends down a beam, like a laser beam, right at our feet, within 5 or 10 feet of us. It's not that big. It's a focused beam. And I'm thinking, is this a weapon? Some type of communication? Or maybe a warning? And just as suddenly as it appeared, it disappears. It's gone. The object goes back to the south toward the sea. Whoa, this is too much. Meantime, I'm on my radio all the time calling the command post. Have the radar folks look at this, look here, look there. What do they see? And they keep telling me nobody sees anything. Wrong. We find out later. Well, we're out there for several hours. Nobody seems to care. We're wet, tired, hungry, cold. So finally I just said about 4 o'clock or somewhere around there. I said, let's just pack it in and go back to the base. So we went back to the base. The objects were still in the sky then. I get back home, I change clothes, take a shower, get a little bit to eat. I can't sleep, I'm so excited. So I decided to go in the office. So I went out of the office. Now our office had 2 wings. One side was the base commander's office, the other side was the wing commander's office. The wing commander was over all the flying. He was the big boss. As I went in the office in the foyer, General Williams came in, the big boss. And he had been listening on the radio the night before every time I was calling the command post asking for help or to look here or look there. And he said, that was some night you had last night, wasn't it? I said, sure it was. He said, I made a tape recording of it. He said, what? Let me hear it. So he went into his office and I played the tape for him. He said, wow, give me the tape. So I gave him the tape. I said, what are you going to do with it? He said that every Wednesday, the 3rd Air Force Commander, who was the Air Force Commander for all of England, or the UK, has a staff meeting for all the senior commanders. I'm going to take it and play it for the general. And I thought, well, there's the end of my career. So I waited all week, because that was Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I was waiting at the door when he came back from the staff meeting. And he got out of the car and came up the steps and he threw the tape recorder to me. And I said, boss, do I still have a job? And he just laughed. I said, well, what happened? He said, well, I described to the staff and the general what you told me and played the tape. And the general turned to the staff and said, well, what do we do? Nobody said anything. And the general, in his infinite wisdom, said, well, it happened off the base. It's a British affair. Case closed. Oh, I felt relieved. I said, do I have to do anything? He said, get with Squadron Leader Morgan. Squadron Leader Morgan was a British RAF liaison officer to the base. Well, Squadron Leader Morgan was in Wales. Anglesey Island was his home. He'd gone for the holidays home. So I had to wait because nobody in his office would touch it for anything. And he came back and I went over and told him what happened and played the tape, and he went into a panic. He made a lot of phone calls and he came back the next day and said, well, write me a memo or something. So I wrote the infamous memo, which later got released, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Days went by, weeks went by, months went by. I kept saying, isn't anybody interested? Anybody going to investigate? He said, I can't get any answers from anybody. I thought, good, this is all going away. Because believe me, reporting a UFO is not career enhancing. So, here we are. All's quiet, stays quiet for a long time. Now, we had a young man on the base who had some issues. Substance abuse and drinking and whatnot. And he hung around with, one of the individuals was out there with me, Sergeant Bastenza. When Sergeant Bastenza went back to the dormitory after the incident, he told Mr. Larry Warren what had happened to him. So when the others talked, of course it was talking amongst all the cops what happened. And Mr. Warren gets on the phone. He used a British Telecom phone, the old red phone booth on the base, and called his mother. Well, what he didn't realize is that we have what they call ComSec. They use computers to monitor the phones. I hate to tell you, but that's true. It still goes on. And they picked up on that. So he ended up getting himself involved in a thing. Later, and I didn't learn this till several years later, the primary individuals involved in the first night, plus Sergeant Bastenza, who was with me, plus Mr. Warren, and maybe others, were brought in, and the spooks, I call them the spooks, I know basically who they were probably, how should I say, debriefed them with probably sodium amyral and hypnosis, and may have even planted some memories. And I'm convinced to this day that Mr. Warren was used for disinformation, got a taste of the publicity, the glory, or whatever, and went from there. Well, and I walked in the door, and the desk sergeant was Sergeant Crash McKay. We called him Crash because he was a character and had a good sense of humor. I said, good morning. He said, uh-oh, and started laughing. I said, what's so funny? He said, Colonel, you're not going to believe this. But Burroughs, Pennison, and Cabanas were out in the woods chasing UFOs all night, and the lieutenant, who was a senior police officer, said, don't put anything in the blotter. I kind of chuckled and thought it was a joke. I said, you serious? He said, no, I'm serious. I said, tell me more. He said, well, all I know is after midnight sometime I got a call on the phone from Airman Burroughs, who was a police officer. He said, I think there's a downed aircraft in the forest outside the east gate. He said, I immediately called air traffic control tower and said, do we have any aircraft down? And he said, nothing's in the area, nothing's flying. I called RAF Rendlesham, we called it Eastern Radar. They had air defense for our sector. They said, nothing showing, nothing flying, nothing around. All these were lies I later learned. We'll talk about that in a bit. He called Heathrow Tower. Heathrow said, nothing in your area. The only thing we have is 2 tracks coming in over the ocean from the States, but they're way out over the water. They're nowhere near you. So he scratches his head and he calls Burroughs back and said, there's nothing reported anywhere. Well, Burroughs says there's something out there. So Security 6 comes up, which is Jim Peniston. He was the flight line security supervisor. And his boss, Master Sergeant J.D. Ingalls, they come up along with several others. They all look into the forest. There's something out there. It looks metallic, and it's got multicolored lights, and it looks like it's on the ground. So it's decided they'll investigate. So Peniston, Burroughs, and poor Airman Kapanasak had only been on the base 2 days, and he didn't know which end was up. Got drafted as a horse holder, so to speak. And the 3 of them loaded in a 6-passenger pickup truck and drove out the Eastgate Road to the Forest Service Road, turned right, went about 100, 150 yards, turned left on a very ruddy, muddy, difficult forest track, down into the forest and took a little left on the trail to get as close as they could with the object. Now they were having problems with the radios, which is quite interesting because we had 5-watt Motorola radios. They were pretty much line of sight, but that's all flat out there. They shouldn't have had any issue whatsoever, but the radios kept cracking and breaking up on them. So they left Kapanasak at the vehicle. Standing on 3 legs, about 9 feet in length, 6, 7 feet high, metallic, grayish metallic, with some type of hieroglyphic type writing on it. Now Peniston had a 35mm camera. The flightline supervisor always carried one to catch any kind of improper activity. So he snapped dozens and dozens of pictures, a whole roll, maybe 2, which he turned into the photo lab later, and they surprisingly disappeared. But anyhow, while they're walking around, this thing levitates. Kapanasak said at one point he thought Burroughs got levitated up into it. Nobody's really sure what happened, because whatever that craft did and what happened to them in a special debriefing with hypnosis and drugs, they're not really sure. It's very obvious that they confronted something. They came back to the base. That's when I went into the desk sergeant, and the desk sergeant told me about it. So I told the desk sergeant, we'll put something in the blotter about they saw some strange lights that they thought was a crashed aircraft. You have to document something, I said, because this could be important sometime.